Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anvesha Pandey, Assistant Secretary General at NATHEALTH. And it's really my pleasure to welcome you all to this 12th NATHEALTH Arogya Bharat Summit 2026, catalyzing value, streamlining innovation, and strengthening healthcare service delivery and supply chains, a true partnership towards Vikasit Bharat 2047. I extend warm welcome to all our distinguished dignitaries, our speakers, and our guests present today. We will now start with a highly relevant and timely discussion on India's allied healthcare sector, the critical gaps and opportunity. As India's healthcare system continues to expand, it is increasingly clear that the future of care delivery will be dependent on the strength of our entire allied healthcare ecosystem. And that's why today we have organized this dialogue. Today's session brings together policymakers, industry leaders, academia, not to just identify these gaps, but to focus on actionable solutions. May I now take the privilege of welcoming our esteemed dignitaries on the dais. I now invite Ms. Ameera Shah, President NATHEALTH and promoter and Executive Chairperson Metropolis Healthcare Limited, to kindly join us on the stage. May I also invite our esteemed government dignitaries, Dr. Vinod Kotwal, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, on the stage. Welcome, ma'am. May I also invite Dr. Yagna Unmesh Shukla, Chairperson, National Commission for Allied and Healthcare Professionals, to join us on the stage, and Mr. Siddhartha Bhattacharya, Secretary General NATHEALTH, to be on the stage. May I request Ms. Ameera Shah to please welcome our distinguished guest, Dr. Vinod Kotwal, with a bouquet, flower bouquet. I would now request Mr. Siddhartha Bhattacharya to kindly welcome Dr. Unmesh Yagna Shukla with a bouquet of flowers. Moving on, may I now please invite Ms. Ameera Shah to please set the context and give her welcome address.
Thank you, Anvesha. And so lovely to see all of you. Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for being here. I hope everyone's had a very hearty lunch, but you're not falling asleep yet, because we have a very interesting panel coming up. I just wanted to warmly welcome my esteemed dignitaries, as we said, Dr. Vinod Kotwal, who's the Additional Secretary, MOHFW, and Dr. Yagna Shukla, Chairperson, NCHP, and all my industry colleagues present here. You know, we keep talking about healthcare across India, and we talk a lot about doctors, and we talk a lot about nurses as well, who unfortunately get mostly exported. But the biggest challenge we also face here is all the allied healthcare professionals, who actually are the core of our industry, whether being lab technologists or whether being radiographers, whether physiotherapists. We have a whole range of people who actually provide the backbone of our healthcare industry. And there are almost 50 plus roles which, like this, don't get enough attention in our dialogues. So currently, we've seen that the government has actually made a provision for increasing budget towards these areas, thanks to the wonderful work done by some of our colleagues here, where the focus is now to say that we are actually at 7 AHPs per 10,000 as a ratio, while if you look at other countries, they're at 22 per 10,000 in the UK and 151 per 10,000 in the US, which means obviously we have a 30 to 40% demand gap. And unless we solve this problem and unless we actually address it, the rapid pace of services and growth in India is not going to be able to be taken care of without having the crux of these people on the ground. So we are meeting at a time of very strong policy alignment. As I mentioned, the union budget has announced a 1,000 crore investment to add 1 lakh AHPs over the next many years. And the idea is to focus on strengthening the training institutions and developing regional medical hubs that are able to provide this. Now, one of the biggest challenges is that this is not an aspirational career today, unfortunately. The cost of education, the time it takes to get educated to be an AHP versus the income they earn when they graduate and come out, the gap is unfortunately not very proportionate. How do we solve this, right? Because unless you make this aspirational, people feel proud to be an AHP. There is a status in society for being an AHP. Unless your income is commensurate with your investment, we're not going to be able to reduce this gap. The second one is training quality. As we always talk about healthcare in Bharat and India, how do you standardize this? How do you get some sort of a minimum standard and quality all across the country? And there is a permanent skill mismatch, as we know, all across. But this is an opportunity. It's not just a healthcare challenge, because this is really going to lead to the economic progress of the country if we're able to create these 10 million employment jobs. And without this economic opportunity, we are going to have a public health crisis because you're not going to have enough people to really take this forward. And digital education can probably also play an important role here. Way forward is going to be the need of the hour is stronger industry-academia alignment, public and private working closely together to get inputs from what is required on the ground from a private sector opinion, create policy that we believe actually can be effectively implemented all across, standardizing the skilling frameworks, and clear pathways for these AHP professionals who graduate and have an earning potential, but where do they go from there? What is the forward path for them to keep advancing and having upward movement? I think we'll use this time to really discuss some of these very interesting points of view, and I'll be happy to join in at the end of it. But thank you all of you, and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Shah, for setting the context so effectively. It's now my privilege to invite Dr. Yagna Unmesh Shukla, Chairperson, National Commission for Allied and Healthcare Professionals, to deliver the keynote address.
Very good afternoon. Respected Dr. Vinod Kotwal, Madam, distinguished members of NATHEALTH, esteemed colleagues from the healthcare industry, respected policymakers, academic leaders, and partners from across the healthcare ecosystem. Namaskar. And before I start, I want to convey a very small thing, that there is an and between allied and healthcare. So it is always and, both are different, allied and healthcare. So it's a privilege to address this gathering at the NATHEALTH Annual Summit, a platform that represents a collective strength, innovation, commitment of strengthening healthcare delivery and supply chain. Today, I would like to speak about a subject that lies at the heart of India's healthcare transformation, translating policy into impact, operationalizing the allied and healthcare professionals' agenda. And also would like to talk on the role of private sector in ensuring standards and how we can work together with National Commission for Allied and Healthcare Professions to build a system that is not only accessible and scalable, but also safe, ethical, and consistently high quality. Healthcare is unlike any other sector. At its core lies human life, dignity, and trust. Standards, therefore, are not merely regulatory requirements, and we see them as a foundation upon which trust is built. India's healthcare system is vast, diverse, and rapidly evolving, and the private sector plays a dominant role in service delivery, accounting for significant proportion of hospitals, diagnostics, rehabilitative services, and allied and healthcare training institutions. At the same time, allied and healthcare professionals' workforce forms a backbone of service delivery. Without standardized training, certification, and practice norms, the quality care can vary widely. This is precisely why NCHP was established to bring coherence, consistency, and credibility to this critical workforce. The vision of NCHP is about future where every allied and healthcare professionals in India is adequately trained through standardized curricula, competently assessed through transparent systems, and ethically grounded in their practice, and most importantly, recognized and respected as integral members of healthcare team. Let me emphasize that this vision cannot be realized by regulations alone. It requires meaningful, committed partnership between public and private sector. Private sector is not only just a stakeholder, it is an important co-creator of India's healthcare future. Private institutions are known to train a large proportion of healthcare professionals, employ and manage vast human resources, set benchmarks in technology adoption and service delivery, and influence patients' expectations and experience. This places upon institutions a unique responsibility and a powerful opportunity to shape standards at scale. And traditionally, standards have been seen as a compliance obligations, but time has come to move from compliance to co-creation. NCHP does not see itself merely as a regulator, but as an enabler and partner. Some issues I would like to suggest, highlight, and convey here, where the support of private institutions can have a major role in transforming policy into impactful implementation. So far, National Commission for Allied and Healthcare Professions have released 16 competency-based curricula, and which is covering 28 out of 57 professions scheduled under the Act. This 16 curriculum is implemented from 2026 academic year as a One Nation, One Curriculum agenda. So the basic objective of this is standardization of education, uniformity, and training. The expectations from the private sector here is, private institutions run a significant number of allied and healthcare programs, and by aligning this curricula with NCHP standards, it can ensure that graduates are industry ready from the day one. Standardized certification enables greater trust in knowledge and hands-on clinical practice, easier mobility across states and institutions, opportunities for international recognition. Private employers can play a key role in prioritizing NCHP recognized qualifications in hiring and career progression. As we all know, healthcare is dynamic. Updates on healthcare must evolve continuously. So I expect private institutions to encourage CPD, continuous professional development, by institutionalize CPD programs, accreditation of training modules, and leverage digital platforms for scalable learning learning can have a greater impact on quality of faculties. Standards must not remain on paper. It must be translated into practice. So hospital and healthcare providers can embed standard treatment and operating protocols, ensure role clarity and scope of practice for allied and healthcare professionals, and promote interdisciplinary teamwork. This will have a major impact on quality assurance in service delivery. One of the key challenges in India is lack of reliable data on allied and healthcare workforce, supply and demand. So I request that by sharing data and workforce planning, that would help in supporting evidence-based policy planning. There is a need to build a trust through transparency, as in an era where patients are increasingly informed. So transparency becomes critical. So it is important that patients to trust qualifications, employers to trust competencies, and institutions to trust each other. By working together, we can build a healthcare ecosystem where quality is not variable but assured to all. As I know that it is understandable that standardization can raise a concern about transition challenges for existing institutions, alignment of legacy programs, and cost implications. But let me assure you that NCHP is committed to consultative, phased, and pragmatic approach. We are here to support and not disrupt. Your feedback, your challenges, and your innovations are a critical inputs in shaping workable solutions. Healthcare, shared responsibility between government, regulators, private sector, academia, and civil society. So I would like to leave you with a simple but powerful thought that standards are not constraints, rather they are enablers of excellence. And I want to request to support by adopting standards, invest in workforce development, and lead by an example. To conclude, I want to convey that it's time to accelerate and promote uniform adoption of standards nationwide. This requires true partnership between centers, states, industry, and academia. Catalyzing value through workforce optimization by defining clear scope of practice, enabling task shifting, we can enhance efficiency and improve access. By 2047, India aspires to be a global leader in healthcare. This requires scaling up allied and healthcare education dramatically, establishing new institutions, upgrading existing ones, and creating career pathways. Let us all remember that Arogya Bharat is not just a slogan, it is a national commitment. Allied and healthcare professionals are unsung architects of this vision. Together, through true partnership, we will catalyze value, stimulate innovation, and build a healthier, stronger, and more inclusive India by 2047. Let us create equitable in access, excellence in quality, and ethical in practice, enduring in trust healthcare system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shukla, for those insightful remarks. And thank you for educating us on how regulation and standardization is important, and uniform adoption of standards and true partnerships from various stakeholders is equally important. Thank you so much for that. We now would like to invite our guest of honor, Dr. Vinod Kotwal, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, to share her address. Dr. Kotwal is a 1994 batch officer of the Indian Post and Telecom and Accounts and Financial Services, currently serves as Additional Secretary, MOHFW, overseeing medical education. With over 3 decades of experience, she has held key roles across government and regulatory bodies, including member secretary at NPPA, where she led pharmaceutical pricing and policy. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Amira Shah, President NATHEALTH, Madam Shukla, Chairman NCHP, Shri Bhattacharya, esteemed delegates who are present, a very good afternoon to you all. I think it's nearing good evening now, I should be saying that. It's a matter of real privilege for me to be present here in this gathering, because this was something that I had requested Shri Bhattacharya ji, and he was very kind enough to organize it. As has been said before me by Ms. Shah as well as Madam Shukla, that the focus of the government now is on allied and healthcare professions and what we are going to do in the next 5 years or so. But before I get to that, I would like to tell all of you, since I look after medical education in totality, it's not only allied and healthcare. Today, India's education infrastructure in health sector encompasses medicine, dentistry, nursing, pharmacy, and allied healthcare. And it's a matter of great pleasure for me to inform you that we, I think, have one of the most robust health education infrastructure. Today, we have around 818 medical colleges, with almost 50-50 capacity in government as well as private sector. Similarly, we have around 5,253 nursing colleges. Same is with the pharmacy. Dentistry, we have just 328 colleges, and as of now, in allied health, I think we have around 4,500 colleges, and capacity is again mostly in the private sector. The point why I'm telling you this is because in the last decade or so, there has been a rapid increase in this infrastructure, and it has been driven by 2-3 factors. One is that government put its money in this sector in the sense that we launched 2 very important schemes. One was the scheme where we set up 157 medical colleges in those districts where there was a district hospital but no medical colleges. It was in same 157 medical colleges, then we later on set up another 157 colleges of nursing. So you can see that slowly and steadily, we are trying to build a system, an ecosystem, which works in tandem with each other. So doctors and nurses are getting trained together. And now at this point of time comes this budget announcement in the 26-27 budget that government has asked us that we have to create 1 lakh seats in allied and healthcare professions in the next 5 years. So the funds which are available, which is 1,000 crore, is not for 5 years. It is for this year only. So as we go along, we will have to devise a scheme and come up with a system wherein we are able to achieve the target which has been set for us. Along the way, we did not reach here overnight. There were steps which were taken by the government, slowly and steadily. In 2012, we came up with a report, a comprehensive report covering the whole of the country, where we tried to document the gaps and the opportunities which were available in this allied and healthcare education system. Then we came up with NCHP Act 2021, and finally the commission was constituted in 2024, and Madam Shukla is the first chairman of NCHP. Because this is a sector which has been unregulated till now, and as has been mentioned by Chairman NCHP, they are the backbone of any health care facility. all of you would agree with me that today healthcare delivery is not a job of only a doctor or a nurse. It's a team-based approach that we have for delivery of healthcare services. So for delivering those services, you have these, I would say, professionals who are working in the background and helping you to deliver the best services that you can to the patient. So that's why government now thought it best to step in, because we have a commission which is going ahead and standardizing the education. They have already come up with curriculum for 16 subjects, which are going to cover, I think, 26 competencies. Similarly, there are regulations which are going to come so far as the registration of the professional is concerned. Madam Ameera Shah, in her remarks, talked about aspirational aspect of this profession. So I think having this commission is also one step towards that, because till now, if I was a physiotherapist, or I was a behavioral psychologist, or I was an optometrist, or a dialysis professional, there were no one centralized place where I could get myself registered, as does a doctor or a dentist or a nurse. So this act provides you with that framework where we would bring all these professions together under one umbrella. And it is a difficult task, coming up with course curriculum for 57 professions which are covered by NCHP, and coming into an area which has been unregulated till now, trying to put into place certain systems which might be difficult for everyone to achieve in one go. But I'm sure slowly and steadily, with everyone's everyone's cooperation and collaboration, we will be able to achieve that. I had actually come here, I wanted to come here only to listen, because I see that after this there is a very interesting panel discussion which is going to follow, where we, I think, have professionals across various, we have from laboratory, we have from education, because I am here to listen to all of you. When I'm going to, go back and discuss it with my team, we want to come up with a scheme which should be able to achieve the target which has been set to us, and at the same time carry along the private sector with us, because, as I said, 70% of the capacity as of now, 70 to 75% of the capacity lies in the private sector. So we will not be able to achieve this target if we do not work together. So in true sense, it's going to be a public-private partnership when we go ahead to implement the scheme in whatever way we are devising it. That is why it is very important for you to give us the feedback on what you think should we be doing to achieve this goal. And while I was sitting there on the dais, Ms. Shah had some suggestions which I'm sure I have taken note of, and there are many more suggestions which will come as I hear all of you today. My only request to you is please be open. Please tell us what exactly you expect from government when this scheme is rolled out. And most importantly, we have at this point of time identified around 10 professions, which we thought are the most important ones as of now in terms of the gaps which are there in terms of the numbers. However, if there are some other professions which you think, other than these 10 professions, which you must have read in the budget para also, which are mentioned, which is like optometry, dialysis therapy, radio imaging, behavioral psychology, physiotherapy, occupational therapy. So these are the areas which are mentioned. However, if you feel that there are some other courses which you think we need to focus on, we would be very happy to hear them out, hear you out, and see what we can do to implement this scheme in a true spirit of public-private cooperation and collaboration. Now, before I end, my only request to all the professionals who are present here, and some of you might be, running educational institutions which are having these courses on allied and healthcare professions. My only request to you is that regulator is coming up with course curriculum which is standardized, and I would urge all of you that from the academic year 26-27 onwards, we are ready to implement these course curriculum, because quality will come when we implement the standardized curriculum. There might be some issues which we might have while we are implementing those. We are ready to hear those out. But my request to you would be that let's walk on this path. It may be difficult to begin with. It's a complicated area with so many diverse professions being regulated under one act. But I'm sure all of us sitting here have that will to implement, like medical, any doctor who goes from India, whether to US or any other country across the world, there is a certain level of badge of honor that he carries, that he's an Indian doctor. Similar is the demand for Indian nurses. We want that similar kind of pride to come from our allied and healthcare professionals when they go. Because when we are implementing this scheme, it is not only for the country, but it is also for the world. We have been, providing our professionals, healthcare professionals in various disciplines, and I look forward to maybe in another 4 or 5 years, the allied healthcare professionals will have the same kind of pride of place. Whenever we have these, inter-country dialogues in the country, and whenever we are discussing these partnership agreements, let's say with any European country, or the first thing that they ask us, so far as HRH is concerned, is, what about nurses? What are the collaborations we can have so that, we get Indian nurses? What are the career pathways we can offer them? So we should reach that kind of a situation when so far as the allied and healthcare professionals is concerned, because that is what the world is going to demand in few years to come. And that's what is going to be there. So I think all of us will work together to achieve that goal. And I'm really keen to hear all the panelists. And thank you, NATHEALTH, again for organizing this. It's really a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that open and honest and such thought-provoking ideas. We will actually try to answer some of the questions that you have raised in the next segment. With this, I would actually like to thank our government dignitaries, and we'll move into the next segment. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Kotwal, and thank you, Dr. Shukla, for those thought-provoking address of yours. I would now hand over the mic to our moderator, Siddhartha Bhattacharya, and I would also like to invite my distinguished panelists who have come here from various sectors, who are going to bring a 360-degree perspective to this discussion. May I invite Mr. Shankha Banerjee, Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Lal Path Labs, Mr. Hari Thallapalli, Chief Executive Officer, Call Health, Mr. Nalin Saluja, Co-founder and Chief Technology Officer, Virohan, Dr. Vicky Kothari, Head and Supply Chains Business of Plan, Dr. Gaurav Thukral, Co-founder and President, HCAH, Mr. Indranil Roy Chaudhary, Director and Chief Executive Officer, Apex Kidney Care, Dr. Neeti Pal, Board Chair, Harbour, and Mr. Prabdeep Singh, Founder and CEO of Red Health, to please join us on the stage. Over to you, Siddhartha.
Hello, hello. I'm audible? Excellent. Okay. Come, have a seat, Prabdeep. So, good afternoon, everyone. I think we are here to find, as industry, some of the answers to the questions that we heard from the government dignitaries. I would just like to set the context very briefly. What is the size of the opportunity? The size of the opportunity, if you really were to look at AHPs, I think that the word "and" is very important between H and in allied and health. So allied and health professionals, wherever I say AHP, it's allied and health. Roughly two-thirds of the workforce in healthcare is actually made out of AHPs. And if you were to take the rough numbers of doctors and nurses as 4 per 1,000 population, and you were to apply that two-thirds of that into AHP, India would have an immediate requirement of over 10 million AHPs, which is a significant number, which is a number generally in many of the discussions I've had, we find that to be true, about 1 crore of allied and health professionals required. If you were to break it into subcategories, into optometrists, physiotherapists, medical lab science professionals, dialysis therapy professionals, medical radiology, imaging technology. Thanks to BCG, who is not here, but I'd like to acknowledge them. NATHEALTH had brought out a study about a couple of years back on allied and health professionals, the sizing of the opportunity. Each of these categories are very large places for employment and employment generation, immediate employment generation, especially in an environment where doctors and nurses are in the capacity. I mean, we are still behind some of the ratios where we are growing up and meeting the numbers. As private sector, which generally delivers about two-thirds of the end care, I'm very privileged today to have with me an entire cross-section of from diagnostics to renal therapies to we have educationals and the training organizations. Dr. Niti, thanks for coming from UK. You have a clear perspective from what happens in UK and many other countries you work. Pradeep on the emergency and the paramedic side. So we have a whole cross-section across industry, and I think I would like to start with you, Shankha, and ask something very basic. What is the boundary line between doctors, nurses in terms of what they do in the diagnostic sector versus where do you rely upon the allied and health professionals? That's my question number one. Question number two really is, to what extent of the organizational load do they bear today? And what is going well for you and where do you see areas of opportunities?
Right, thanks Siddharth, and thanks for having me on this panel. It was lovely hearing both of you ma'ams at the beginning. I think from a lab perspective, the doctor, which is predominantly a pathologist, and if one is doing also radiology services, then we are talking about radiologists. And then you've got this whole lot of lab technicians that are there as the the allied staff. So the difference is quite clear that for a company like us, which is a very large network, we have infrastructure, which is a testing infrastructure, which we would call a lab, and we have a very large collection infrastructure where testing does not happen, but sample collection happens. Now, so the chief role where a doctor or let's say so a pathologist or a radiologist comes into play is primarily looking at the analysis of once the results are getting reported, the quality of that, the machines and the instruments that we use, how is that quality getting maintained, and then the final result reporting is all happening as per the quality protocols and the norms are all getting followed. Whereas the technicians, they have a very, I would say, the bulk of the work actually gets done there. Right from the initial thing of a sample draw, which could be inside the lab or it could be at somebody's home or it could be at a collection center or it could be also at some institutional location where a blood sample draw is happening. And there are a lot of things about ensuring that the sample is taken, right quantity, right kind of tubes. The integrity has to be maintained of that sample from the time it is collected till the time it reaches the lab. So the proper, storing and packaging when the transportation happens. And obviously inside the lab also, the bulk of the segregation of samples into different, departments, and then loading those onto the machines and getting the basic machine work done. So actually the bulk of the work, Siddharth, if you see, is handled by the what we are calling as the AHP. For us, it's like technicians. So I think very important for us in our scheme of things, and all our expansion programs, obviously, we need to have good quality trained, and obviously we also spend a lot of time trying to train them. So I think that's what maybe I can talk about right now for this question.
Pradeep, you run an emergency services, Red Health. So you rely a lot upon paramedics, emergency medical technicians. What is the process by which you are able to hire them? What is your current sense on the quality that is coming in? And if you were to scale quality as the ma'am talked about in terms of standards, of course we should all adhere by standards. How do you see this picture playing out? What percentage of the people actually do you get today? And what you aspire to get in the new world of AHPs?
Thank you for, am I audible? Yeah. So at Red Health, we are now in 40 cities and run a very large fleet of ambulances. And most of these ambulances are ALS. That means that we need to have someone qualified inside, right? I wouldn't call it a doctor, an EMT or paramedic, because frankly, neither do I know, nor does the hospital or the operators that who should be inside the ambulance in the first place. That's problem number one. I'll give this problem statement to all of you from three vantages. One is the EMT or a paramedic, so you had to use multiple words to define that individual. So I will define it from the professional's point of view. So a person coming out from 12th who wants to become an EMT has multiple routes available. It's a 6-month, 2-year, 3-year BSc nursing, multiple routes available. So the EMTs that we have in our company are of various types and kinds, right? And they're all very confused. We also run a training arm, a registered training arm called Redversity, and we are AHA and NAEMT, PALS, etc. accredited. And the question that EMTs ask is that why should I go for a 2-year or a 3-year course when there is a 6-month course? Now that 6-month course is not part of the NACHP, right? Because it doesn't qualify for the 2000 hours. But if 108 system is hiring them and hospitals are hiring them, then why should I as an operator not hire them, right? But this brings the overall quality of emergency response lower. So I think there has to be a bit of cleanup here on who an EMT is, who a paramedic. These are not interchangeable words. These are not synonyms, but they are used. At the same time, given state subject, Ayush doctors are also with training allowed to go, right? So broadly, at a core level, we are confused, and so are the professionals on who is qualified to go inside an ambulance today. Number two is the ambulance operators, right? There are over 2 lakh ambulance operators. Today, if I run a restaurant, I have to be licensed. A diagnostic lab has NABL. We have a taxi company has to be registered and licensed. I can sell my ambulance, one ambulance to you today, anyone here, anyone on this panel, and you overnight become an ambulance operator, right? So the problem here is that there is no licensing authority for an ambulance operator per se, right? Now, in a competitive environment, if I have someone who is brilliant, 3 BSc nursing, 5 years of experience in that ambulance, whereas my competitor is unregistered, unlicensed, because there is no, I run 500 ambulances and I have no license or registration except the Motor Vehicle Act that allows me to run a truck practically, right? So I think the broader question, at least in my industry, is that ambulances should be regulated, and this was brought up in one of the speeches in the parliament as well. But the most important, I think, is patient. If we keep patient at the center of our universe, patient today knows who a doctor is. A cardiologist has a pathway, a neurologist has a pathway, there is an MBBS, there is an MS, MD, DNB, right? Who do I tell to the patient is arriving? How does a patient choose me over anyone else? How does a patient know whether this EMT can handle an emergency that's cardiac or a trauma in nature? Because if I as an operator don't and the paramedic himself does not or herself does not, how do I convince the patient that I am sending you a person who can help you in a particular situation? So I'm glad that emergency medical technology is one of the 10 listed priorities. But ma'am, this is a brilliant opportunity because with aging population, emergencies are going to increase. We are seeing heart attacks and strokes, and treatment on point can save a lot of lives. Thank you.
Let's look at, thanks Pradeep. Indranil, you run nationally a chain of dialysis. It's a national dialysis service provider, hemodialysis provider. So with about 250,000 patients being detected every year with end-stage renal diseases, your demand is growing about 5 crores annually for dialysis sessions. It would be, you would need a great number of dialysis technicians. How do you convince someone to come into allied and health professional when alternate career paths exist in many other sectors, right? You can have IT, ITS, you can talk about even gig economy. I mean, there are different spectrum of it. What is it? How have you been able to pull that large numbers, and what do you need to happen going forward?
Thank you, Siddharth. First of all, thanks to NATHEALTH for having me, and thanks to Madam Kotwal and Madam Shukla for enlightening us what has been happening in the country. So Siddharth, before I answer your question, I would take the opportunity to really tell the people what is the crisis of dialysis. India has about 2.5 to 3 million dialysable patients who are suffering from CKD5. The penetration of dialysis in India is about 25 to 30%, gone up significantly in the last 5 years, courtesy PMNDP. Transplant among them is only 5%, 95% is hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis. India has about 5,000 centers, 50,000 machines. Even if we look at a 10% more penetration, in the coming 5 years, India needs double the number of centers and machines. And with 12,000 odd, 12 to 15,000 odd AHPs in the dialysis segment, this number is expected to go around 30, 35,000. So that's the challenge we are looking at. Mind you, Government of India, if you look at the Ayushman Bharat spend in the last 3 years, dialysis is one of the biggest spend by the Pradhan Mantri National Dialysis Program along with chemotherapy. Unfortunately, we have been lobbying a lot with the government about monitoring the quality. Now we are seeing the government is looking very, very favorably at that. PMNDP portal is being launched. Thanks to the government for that. But quality cannot be delivered without a skilled professional. So Siddharth, coming to your question, we are an 18-year-old organization. We run today about 240 centers across 130 cities of the country, both standalone in private hospitals as well as public-private. You can understand the importance of this because out of our 1,800 employees, which I lead, 1,400 are dialysis technicians and nurses, and 100 are doctors who are nephrologists, okay? We have been running a school of Apex Dialysis Technology, ASDT, Apex School of Dialysis Technology in collaboration with TIS, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, for the last 10 years. About 9-10 years back, we used to see good number of students coming in. So far, this school has trained about 1,800 technicians. We run both degree and diploma course. We have been seeing a steady fall in the number of patients enrolled over the last 3 to 4 years, and we have been wondering what should we do. We now have been approved by Maharashtra State Board of Vocational Education to run both degree and diploma courses. We have been carrying multiple activities, marketing activities to get more and more students enrolled. To be very honest, candid, we have not succeeded much. The enrollment per year is about 60 to 70, it has not gone up. To be honest, as a CEO and director, that particular stream for me is a loss-making stream. I'm not saying that I need to have profit, but it has to be a sustainable stream. Unfortunately, it's a loss-making stream. Now, there are certain things which we can do. Now, let's understand why it is, because obviously, as rightly pointed out, it's no longer a coveted or an attracted profession for the people. There are multiple options. I thought of some of the ideas which, with the two madams here, I would like to take the opportunity to highlight. There has to be a campaign, a social media campaign, a campaign at a mass awareness level, like the way we say that one should be proud to join the Indian Navy and Army. It should also say that one should be proud to join the AHP profession, because it's a war. India is fighting a war. If we have to go by the SDG 3 goals of the Prime Minister, we need a huge workforce. So there has to be a campaign giving the people an idea about the novelty of this profession. It's not only the doctors, it's the allied health professionals who save lives to a large extent. Point number one. Point number two, the minimum wages in the various states. Today they are clubbed with the semi-skilled, the skilled, they are clubbed with the other gig workers and all. This needs to be relooked at. If we really want good people to come in and they should look at a career opportunity, we should be able to provide them. And one more point is, when you revise the minimum wages, there has to be a relook at the way industry is being reimbursed, because it has to be a sustainable model which will drive the public-private partnership. There can be various other things. Organizations should be allowed to spend their CSR on such activities of training the workforce. Today it is allowed, but there are too many red tapeism into that. There can be various other things, like the way service, Army, Navy, or Air Force guys are given various incentives in terms of air travel or a train travel or something like that. Those can be looked at for AHPs. Those are some of the things. They can be looked at a better debt facility from the banks in terms of setting up their home or buying a vehicle or many such things. But at the same time, what is important, the government must be ruthless with the industry in checking whether the compliance is having or not. The fact is, as Prabdeep was mentioning, today dialysis is a life-saving therapy. No one needs to check what is the qualification of the dialysis technician who is providing. Let's not forget, India has less than 3,000 nephrologists for a population of 140 crore. And these 3,000 nephrologists, if they have to treat 2.5 million ESRD patients, then the dialysis technicians and nurses need to be very, very strong. There are certain state PPPs who have the law that you need to recruit people having this qualification. But unfortunately, in most of the places, there is no checking on this.
I have a very pointed question to ask all the three of you. If quality was not a constraint, you had 250 dialysis centers across the country. In the next 5 years, how many would you hire qualified allied? I mean, incrementally. Now that we have, the new commission that has come, there is a lot of renewed momentum behind. You don't have any problem with demand. So, what is your, hiring intake numbers?
So, Siddharth, first and foremost, we are looking at doubling up our number of centers, which means that we will double up our machines as well as the people. Now, the point here is, as we look at it, the fact is, what is the main constraint? I don't have a challenge in Maharashtra. I've got about 49 centers across Maharashtra. But when I have to recruit people in Madhya Pradesh, I run 70 centers in Madhya Pradesh, I run 49 centers in Telangana. When I have to recruit people, I face a real challenge. The government gives me a work order saying you have to start another 30 centers in the coming 30 days. And when I look at recruitment, I talk to my head of HR and I talk to my head of QA. They are not satisfied with the quality of people, and we don't recruit people if we are not satisfied. So that's where the main challenge is. We would really look at the government to help us set up standards. And again, as I say, there has to be a short-term and a long-term solution. The long-term solution we all know about. There are multiple medical colleges, nursing colleges being set up. The short-term solution is a very big challenge in dialysis. For that, one idea can be, government has already a very, very competent workforce in terms of the nurses, the paramedics in various places. we can join hands with the government in setting up a curriculum, which is a 6 to 7 month curriculum, which can be utilized in training this available workforce. But again, there is I would like to highlight one point from ground level experience, Siddharth. One of the states where we run a PPP 70 dialysis center, we do about 19,000 dialysis in a month in that state. Unfortunately, there are only 3 qualified nephrologists in the government sector in that particular state. We offered the government that we will train the medical superintendents and the nodal officers in all the 70 hospitals with our doctors whom we will fly in from Mumbai. First year we did that, the attendance was only 45%. Most of the people did not turn up. Second year, government approached us. I approached the Principal Secretary Health and he was very, very kind enough. He issued a mandate saying it has to be attended. The attendance jumped to 95%. So the point is government needs to be ruthless in execution. That's my only point.
Got it. I'm just going to come back. I just want to, Hari, one of the questions I would have for you is, you are a digital tech aggregator, integrator, you see across industries, laterally, horizontally. What is your perspective? I think the question that makes a lot of sense is, demand is not an issue. Quality is an issue. If you wanted to make, but at the end of it, it is also a job that requires large numbers. And you have to be able to pull large numbers from across the country. It cannot be, from, unlike medical education, 5, 6, 7, 8 states make a bulk of the doctors. Here you need from everywhere. How do you make this a mass profession? And while not compromising on quality, how do you scale up the intake?
Yeah, thank you, Siddharth. Again, just to introduce myself, the last 10 years I've been in healthcare, but prior to that I was in the tech industry. And I've also done some HR roles. So I can tell you this, the first perspective is that Call Health, the company that I run now, is a digital health company, probably one of the first digital health companies that started in India in 2015. We started with the intent of making healthcare patient-centric. Today it is very doctor-centric. In other words, you have to go to the hospital or go to the doctor. We were trying to see if we could move the services closer to the patient. And the second point was we looked at interoperability. In other words, the ability to move data between different constituents within the healthcare ecosystem. Those were the 2 big objectives on which we started. When we started, we had 35 different services that we had in vogue. So right from what we talk about, peritoneal dialysis, we talked about optometry, audiometry, you name it, sleep apnea, digital X-ray, and so on and so forth. We started in Hyderabad. We struggled because we found that digital health was very new. Second was availability of skilled professionals whom you can trust and rely upon to send them to somebody's home and get a service done is very different from how they are when they are inside a hospital. Inside a hospital, if you don't get the nerve, you will get a senior nurse who will come in and do it. But when you are in front of a customer's home, we realized that the system was failing. We were unable to do that. Now, why am I bringing this up? It is in the context of what we are setting out to do. I have been telling Siddharth, and I'm extremely pleased to hear what we are setting out to do as a country. This is much, much needed for us to do. Today, I service about 250,000 orders across 1,600 towns in India, about 16,000 pin codes approximately that we service. And it is across few services, but at this stage, we have reduced the number of services to very few now. But the truth is that staff availability outside is a big issue. And staff availability meaning skilled, qualified, etc. The day I went to Kurnool and Anantapur and other places, I had a lot of people signing up to be physiotherapists and phlebotomists and so on. The only thing was none of them had a certificate to substantiate that. Now, if you're a digital health company, you can't run it the way you run it in a physical enterprise, right? So we could not scale it. We could not go deeper into the country with the current availability. Now, that's my problem statement. What do I think we should do? I think today, we are definitely, one message before I go to that point is that I think healthcare industry continues to think that they are very unique. And I am part of the healthcare industry today. But I want us all to recognize that aviation industry went through this problem. IT industry went through this problem. For every, aviation industry, for every pilot and cabin crew, you have 18 allied and related functions that they do. In IT, it is 1:3. In healthcare, it is probably 1:4 or so. Now, the point I'm trying to say is a lot of them have managed to scale without failing. We should look at best practices that they did and figure out what is it that you have to do. That's the second point I want to say. The point around what we have to do here, I would summarize everything that we have to do into 4 Ps. The first I would say is, pay. Let us recognize the people we are talking about are earning 20,000, 30,000 per month. So pay is an important issue. If you have to study for 2 years and then, go for training and then earn 30,000, you're not exciting them. They have other jobs which they will get much earlier. So we have to figure out a, earn as you learn model, which Nephroplus has done, but there are others who will have to do it at a much more aggressive level. That's the first part. The second part I would say is progression. I think the biggest problem with India today, and a structured act and a structured body can help us do that, is grow their salary based on outcomes, not based on tenure. We should have periodic certification mechanisms which test the skills of people, and based on the skill, their compensation should exponentially grow, not linearly grow. So the second part is progression. And it can also lead to maybe related growth on that. Third is portability, and Madam talked about it. I think we today should not have licenses that restrict me to operate in Telangana, not in Andhra Pradesh, not in Tamil Nadu. Whatever we are doing should be as a country and should be portable across the country. And more importantly, we should take into account best practices outside India and see if that portability can also be across borders. That will bring a lot of attention and attraction for people to try this. The last one I would say is pride. I think the pride is a big issue today. Let me acknowledge, in a hospital, a doctor gets attention. Everybody else doesn't get attention. And I think it is very important, like Indranil just said, figuring out a sense of pride, sense of recognition, sense of appreciation by the larger community in different ways will make a big difference to what we are setting out to do. So I just want to summarize saying, if India wants to become really large in the healthcare sector, we will have to deconstruct and demystify the current healthcare model so that you can bring better people across different specializations and scale it much faster. I can still deal with 3 nephrologists if you had enough number of people to whom you can extrapolate it.
Got it. Thank you, Hari. Very well put. I'm going to turn to you, Gaurav, and thereafter Vicky. As private sector, if you think as public-private partnerships and see across this value chain from sourcing to the whole competency development, then assessments, accreditations, finding the market opportunities, re-accreditation, recertifications. What are some of the concrete things as private sector we have the competency and ability to partner that we can put on the table so that this journey of scaling can happen faster than later?
Thank you, Siddhartha. I represent the largest segment of the out-of-hospital care industry. We have home health care presence across all the metros and the largest network of recovery hospitals where we treat patients after head injury, stroke, spine injuries, and other post-acute ailments. 80% of our workforce, ma'am, you'll be happy to know, is allied health workers. We hire hundreds of physiotherapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, respiratory therapists, cognitive therapists, psychologists, dietitians, counselors across India, but then thousands of geriatric caregivers. The ground reality is, especially in the caregiver segment, I think this commission is music to my ears. because all the people which I said work in our recovery hospitals, still the registration is going to be very, very beneficial for them. And we hire all BPT, MPT, all postgraduates, so it's not going to be a problem for them, I assume. But for the caregivers, which we are thousands across, I would say, top 5 organized players in the country in home health care, the problem statement is that we hire these people from government-trained, NSDC-trained centers. 50% of them leave us in the first 15 days. 90% of them leave us in first 100 days. And it's only a 10% workforce with the unorganized workforce which stays together. And I think together we are managing thousands of patients across India today. Why does this happen? The first thing which happens is in the 15 days, the reality check. Oh, this is not what I was told to do. I was trained for something else. In 100 days, what am I doing? What I'm going to tell to my neighbors, what do I do? And this is not a skill or mismatch of skill. This is not a mismatch of education. The mismatch happens at the stage of gender, at the stage of built, at the stage of even religion. So when I welcome and this commission, I think there are some questions which need to be answered. Why would a geriatric healthcare provider register? What would happen to the workforce which is already there, is not trained, and will get a provisional registration, and how will they get to a permanent registration? What is the incentivization for them to get trained, because the perceived value of paying them might not change? How will we pay them if the services itself are not paid as per the value which they have? Coming to the question which you asked, Siddhartha, we are more than happy to participate because it solves a big problem for us. Today, the growth of the business, the growth of the services, the geriatric population, which we are saying is going to double in the next 1 decade, we are held up only because of supply constraints, because of the problems which I enumerated. We have used technology in a very big way, but the adoption of technology to this cadre is very, very difficult, because why should I do that? I get the same money with another provider in the unorganized sector, right? Or maybe a little less than that, but I don't have to go through these competencies. I don't have to put up on an app and do tick mark that I have done all these things, right? So definitely I see a lot of opportunity into turning, I think most of the companies in the home healthcare into the transition care, recovery hospitals, assisted living will be more than happy to contribute through technology-based methodologies for the PPP relationships to employ, train, and get this thing, because it solves our business problem. But there are some fundamental questions which need to be answered to build the pride which ma'am was talking of, right? To build that pride and instill that pride in these all workers, which we have been trying to do for the last decade and a half in this industry. So that would be my take on that.
Over to Dr. Vicky. Thanks, Dr.
Hello. Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you, ma'ams. So we sit at a very interesting junction at my company, Afford Plan. So we don't hire any HPs. But the programs that we run with hospitals, one is on the patient engagement side, and the second is the supply chain side. So we have a bird's eye view of how having not adequate quality AHPs in the healthcare provider ecosystem, how is it impacting? So one way you will always see is that the patient satisfaction will be below what you want. Because when a patient walks into the hospital, the amount of time that they will spend with a doctor is going to be few minutes. And if it is an inpatient, the amount they will spend with AHPs and nurses is much higher. And on the supply chain side, having not enough trained AHPs, you will see that the consumption in terms of drugs, consumables, etc., will be higher, which I think our friend Indranil can possibly quantify that not having qualified dialysis technicians will also be impacting the consumption pattern of consumables, which is again a business impact. Now, hearing the panel here, I think one thing which is clearly coming out is why, as an individual who's 10th or 12th plus, why should I become an AHP? So pride is, of course, something that aspirationally all of us look at. My point of view here is that pride has to be instilled not just by the healthcare providers, but by the ecosystem at large. As a patient, if I walk in, am I respecting that profession per se? Because if I'm not respecting that profession per se, the individual is not going to have the pride to work in that sector. Second point, which I've heard quite a bit here, and I don't know if that's a solution. We have talked about having non-certified AHPs which are there in the ecosystem who haven't received any formal training but are still doing the work. The government should look at bringing them into the fold. They are your lowest hanging fruit, actually. They've been trained. They are better than somebody who will sit in a classroom for 2 years without actually having hands-on experience. So why not bring them into fold, certify them in a manner which actually helps the business and helps that individual also that, hey, I've been working as a geriatric care provider and now I have a certification to do that.
Yeah.
In terms of the capacity side, I believe every hospital is sitting on infra that can be used for training. It doesn't have to be colleges because colleges will give classroom training, and at least what I hear is what is required is very hands-on training to be able to meet the demand. So why shouldn't every hospital who has infra be enrolled as a partner, as a training ground for one or the other program? So those would be my thoughts.
Thanks, Dr. Vicky. So, okay, I'm just going to circle back with you, Nalin and Dr. Niti. Nalin, I have the question I have for you is, what are the three ideas succinctly you can put on the table that will help bridge the demand-supply gap in the next 3 to 5 years, and specifically the role that you want the commission to play in facilitating that?
Thank you, Siddharth. So I think start with thanking NATHEALTH for organizing this forum. I think a very timely discussion. Thanks to Dr. Kotwal and Dr. Shukla as well for sharing the vision, both for the long term and the short term with regards to NCHP. Just for people who are not familiar with Virohan, we're basically education to employment. We work with universities as well as with employers and understand the kind of skills that employers are looking for and ensure that the students who are coming out of the universities have those exact skills to be able to obtain the jobs that employers are offering. And we work only and only in the allied and healthcare space. Have been doing it for the last 8 years or so. And definitely welcome the change that will happen with the introduction of NCAHP, because I think it's badly needed for all the reasons that everyone else has already talked about. Now, I think what we have discussed is, how important allied and healthcare roles are across every aspect of healthcare delivery and for ensuring good outcomes for every patient in the country. What we have also discussed is that the gap is massive. I think Ms. Amira sort of talked about the numbers in her address and how India is not even in the same conversation in terms of the ratios that or the number of allied and healthcare professionals that are working today. So I think we know the importance of these roles. We know that there is a massive gap, and yet I think the conversation is about that why is the demand and supply gap persisting? And so I think for that, I think two things that I want to talk about. One is the aspiration deficit, and which also has, someone touched upon it earlier, and the awareness deficit, right? I think from an awareness standpoint, and I think that's where the government can play a very crucial role, because I truly believe that for awareness of allied and healthcare, nothing did as much for driving awareness of these roles as much as just the Honorable Finance Minister's address in the budget this year did. That itself changed the conversation in the entire country. And so if that one address can make such a massive impact, with just a little bit of concentrated effort from the government, I think we can truly drive a significant amount of interest in allied and healthcare professional job roles. But I think that's just part of the picture. There is another part to it, which is aspiration. I think for aspiration specifically, to come back to the question that you asked, I do have 3 or 4 suggestions that I think can sort of make a bit of a difference. One, I think, and I know that it's already been accounted for by NCHP in various different conversations. I would love to see how the actual implementation of it comes out over time. But the first thing I want to talk about is the international mapping of the credentials that are awarded under NCHP. To explain that, one quick example I'll give is that we at Virohan, we run a particular product called LEAP, which is in partnership with international recruiting agencies. So one of our partners is Mainavi, which is the largest recruitment staffing firm in Japan. And what ends up happening is that that we're able to essentially ensure that the skills that are needed for working in Japan, those are taught in the programs here. I think only 10% of the students actually move because the visas, the skills, the language, there's a lot of barriers. But what it does is it raises the bar of the training quality, and the rising tide lifts all boats. And I think it creates a positive impact to the healthcare outcomes within the country as well. So that's one. The second I would say is I think the government already has a very powerful framework in terms of the national credit framework, because what that does is that it provides a depository of skill credits to every person, and I think it's a part of NEP and has been rolled out in every and so it provides every professional a ladder from doing a diploma to a degree to a specialization to masters. And so on. And I think what it also unlocks for every allied and healthcare professional is that, over a period of time, you start off in a great job, but then over a period of time, you can keep on adding to that credit bank and have a dynamic career as opposed to a static job. Right? I think that also will play a crucial role in terms of unlocking the aspiration for the sector. And the third piece, of course, I think everyone here has talked about, I think, about the need for employment partners to be able to create structured pathways of career growth from a junior technician to a lab technician to a head of department or whatever it is, right? I think all 3 things working in parallel can help unlock aspiration for these job roles.
Thank you, Nadu. Last but not the least, Nithi. You've looked across many countries. If you were to take on a lens, you worked for UK NHS. How has this profession evolved? India, we're just starting the journey. Informally, we have done it for a long time. What are some of the pitfalls we must avoid so that we go to our desired destination faster than anybody else?
Thank you, Siddharth. He leaves the most difficult question for the end. Yes. So thank you very much for that. Really proud to be here with these wonderful ladies. I'm so proud to be of Indian origin, to see some of these wonderful women that represent the modern India. So thank you for letting me be here. So I was thinking really seriously about this. I worked in about 44 countries around the world. Today, I'm the rather grand old lady, probably the oldest person in the room here today. But having worked in so many healthcare systems across the world, I see similar problems everywhere, and you've all articulated them, so I'm not going to go through some of them. But I also grew up in the UK NHS as a primary care doctor in an inner city practice where I had 33 different languages spoken and a cost envelope to deliver that care in. So in my practice in inner city Birmingham, I saw about 10 times the number of patients that my contemporaries saw in leafy Edgbaston, which is where the cricket club is. You'll know where Edgbaston is. So I had to deliver the same quality of care in the same cost envelope to all my patients. So I had to think really carefully about, so the UK NHS is probably the biggest PPP in primary care. So I had to think really carefully at the start of my journey about how I'm going to deliver that care. It couldn't be just with the doctor, because I'm seeing 10 times the number of people. It couldn't just be with my nurses, which it was. My nurses took on very early in my practice, took on the roles of, I trained the first advanced nurse practitioner in the country, actually, in the UK. But because I, as a doctor, put my head above the parapet and said, I will take accountability and responsibility for this nurse's practice, and I'll take accountability for her prescribing. Which a lot of doctors in this room are also going to have to get over this hurdle that they think about somebody's taking my job, because they're not. They're actually helping you do the job. So that was one that helped me think about some of this. And the second thing, then the nurses' tasks shifted. How the task shifted then happened. My nurses started seeing about 80% of all my chronic disease management and care was done by my nurses, not by the doctor in the end. And then the task shifted happened further. I employed 3 healthcare assistants. Nobody in the country was doing them at those days. And my HCAs started to do foot checks. They started to do my kidney checks. I employed a prescribing pharmacist in my practice. I employed a pharmacy technician to look at my genetic prescribing, to look at what I was prescribing or not prescribing. So what I'm trying to give you a real example of, Siddharth, here, and by the way, I was kind of ostracized by my partners near me. People said to me, get her off the performers list. She's a terrible doctor. She's dumbing down the profession. Which is what I hear here as well. I hear a lot of that going on with contemporaries here. They think somebody's going to take their job, or they're not going to do as good a job as me, or something like that. So please avoid that pitfall. But actually, no one is taking your job. They're just helping you do it better. So that was one. The second thing was just making it easier. Just making the pathway to some of these things much easier. So not letting this get in the way. For example, I'll give you a very tiny example. I do diabetes for a living, guys. I'm the president of the International Diabetes Federation globally now. And my community nurses were not allowed at one point to go in and do blood sugar checks in nursing homes, elderly people's homes, or in their homes for some very strange reason. Don't know why. But my patients could do it themselves. So I sat there looking at this, thinking, this is completely crazy. So I ended up going to the health minister at the time and saying, you've got to simplify some of this stuff. So you can regulate stuff, you can set standards, but you can also make it bloody difficult. Pardon my French. You can make it really, really difficult for people when you're over-regulating stuff as well. So you've got to be flexible with your regulation. Don't make this a line in the sand that forever you mustn't do this. Because in years to come, actually, AI is going to take over a lot of the doctor jobs. So let's get it straight. It's not the allied healthcare professionals who won't take over your jobs. It's AI. So in diagnostics, you guys who sit in diagnostics, I already see this across the world and actually seeing it in India. We're deploying point-of-care testing in India, and I'm also deploying it in Bangladesh, where I'm going to next, deploying it in Nigeria, in Mexico, in many countries like that. And actually, the pharmacists are taking on some of this job, helped by AI, to do some of the diagnostics. Handheld x-rays, ultrasound, a whole bunch of stuff in pharmacies. So get this, guys. You're not going to do this in your labs. It's happening somewhere else. Now, if I got stuck with the regulation around the pharmacist trying to do some of this job, we'd be in real trouble. I wouldn't be able to do this. Some of the beauty of India and the beauty of countries like yours, you are the most entrepreneurial, the most wonderful culture that I've experienced. There's nobody in the world who does this better than us in India. Is the entrepreneurship, the pushing the boundaries. So please don't over-regulate this sector, because you end up over-regulating it, you will end up in trouble, like the UK got into trouble, and we ended up having to deregulate some of this and get to start to do the community nurses. I mean, at one point, my community nurses weren't allowed to give somebody a bath. I mean, that was the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. That was their job, to keep my patients clean in the community, and they couldn't give them a bath because the regulation didn't allow it. So while I and there's just one final point I'd like to make, Siddharth. I also come at it from a payer perspective. I have my friend Nikki here, who runs the International Federation of Health Plans worldwide. And we meet insurers and payers worldwide. You will see this in Ayushman Bharat. I helped set it up in my other life with KPMG. You'll find that payers will also push you, all you providers here, I will push you to say how you're going to reduce the cost of care. Because actually, as a payer, I'm seeing, and I work with most of the largest insurers in the whole world, we see cost of care going up, we see volume of care going up. And you can't always carry on putting up prices. It's not going to happen. At some point, it's going to stop. And as providers, you're having a conversation next. I think tomorrow you guys are having a conversation about the payer-provider conversation. So in the UK, that has happened already. So somebody with back pain will see a physiotherapist, and the physio will make the decision about what happens to you next. And most insurers have followed suit. Also in the payer perspective, before the payers didn't pay for a diabetes specialist nurse to do your care. But actually now they pay for it. So again, you're going to have to start to look at that as well and talk to your payers about how the reimbursement's going to happen.
Thank you. As always, thank you so much, Niti. I know we are almost coming to the end of this session, but I would like to request Dr. Vinod Kotwal and Ma'am Yagnaji, if you have any questions that you would like to ask the industry panel, something that is in your mind, I am happy to direct the questions, anything.
I think I have one question because there are many service providers here. When we are looking at public-private partnership, as we go ahead for designing the scheme, I just wanted to get your thoughts on, we are discussing, one of the models could be, like, we have a laboratory as a hub, whether it is giving you medical services or radio diagnostics, and that lab becomes the hub, and the institutions, we map the institutions in that geographical area, and then you provide the testing, what should I say, the skill lab, so to say. So would you be interested in that kind of a model where, you are at the hub and, we have these institutions as the spoke, and then, you help them, so the children do their classes in the classroom, and then so this is just one of the ideas we were thinking. We'll have to see how it goes with the regulation. But if they do their classes, let's say from 9 to 1, and then in the afternoon they come to your lab, so that the institute does not need to invest in having a lab, and that can be provided by, providers like you. So how do you think that can work out?
So, ma'am, I am from Dr. Lal Path Labs, and I must say that's music to my ears. So, actually, one of the things I had written down was, the current system has a lot of classroom education, maybe less of practical training. And one of the suggestions would have been that, how can we kind of, change that? So firstly, the answer is yes. Somebody like us, and I'm sure there will be many more like us who would be willing to really partner, because it helps on both sides. And, we can work out the modality. I'm thinking even, it could be phased in a manner where, let's say, if today somebody was to do a distance learning MBA, what do? They do on the job, and then weekends they do some classes, right? They will go physically, do course, but most of the other things is remote. So even those things can be, discussed and worked upon. But definitely what you are suggesting is something which is highly doable. I think we'll be really very interested to really partner with the government on that.
I'll just want to add here, ma'am, I think in nursing and therapy, this is already what we say internships, which is hands-on training, post-training. But I think that, again, becomes a very tick mark activity, especially now when so many therapy colleges have mushroomed. My suggestion here would be, if this could be applied to therapists also, to behavioral psychologists also, beyond lab, right? Hospitals have already been working very closely with all these internships, but they take these internships for more manpower supplement, rather than saying that this is going to be a skill training, but on-the-job training during the curriculum also for all the therapists, all the psychologists, dietitian, I think would also change the way these people learn. So beyond.
Yes, that is what I was... See, if you look at the curriculum which has already been released, that includes everything. Everything means clinical exposure too, and we have insist about it. And those institutions if they don't have this clinical or a hospital, they can very well do MOU with any kind of hospital, and that way they can work it out. As far as you said that if the human power, I mean, human resource is available, but they don't have a degree, but on experience basis, can we allow them registration? A big no. Because then what will be the difference? They have to study, they have to undergo certain quality standardized education, hands-on practice. They have to have certain certificate that has been clearly defined. So unless and until they have this degree certificate, unless and until they are eligible to get registered, they will not be able to practice. It is like a license. So from that angle, we cannot encourage people who are layperson and they are practicing. But there is a provision in the Act that those who are practicing before 2021, before this Act came, we are going to offer them bridge course. So if they undergo that bridge course, they can be at par with registered member, and that way we will try to see to it that we'll accommodate everyone so that that issue doesn't arise, because for the first time we are implementing it. So, but my vision is that after 2030, the scenario, once the first batch is going to be out, the scenario in allied and healthcare sector is going to be totally different. So let us hope that if everything goes as per our dream, then I think we very much, maybe after 4-5 years, the healthcare professionals are going to be of different quality. Yeah. Thank you.
And Siddhartha, just a quick point from me on some of this. I know you're trying to close. I think it's not just about, a lab technician or the others. So I also, recently I saw a respiratory physiologist for my lung function tests. Actually, she gave me much more information and did my lung function test much better than a doctor would have done. And I got far more information from her than the respiratory consultant who had seen me. So this is not just about, this is also about other professionals in biology, in physiology, and other places who will train to become allied and healthcare professionals who we also need to push. These will be of a different level, but you really do need to start to push that kind of training out. They're already trained to a basic level, and you can train them even further to do some of the things that you're talking about.
Just, as we move forward on this very important steps that you all are taking, I think what would really be encouraging for private sector is as you create new curriculums, if potentially we can give our inputs on content, if something is missed out which is useful in the private industry world, then we can make that education and skilling more robust. That's one. Second thing is, if you're going to have, let's say, students come to private industry and do internships, it's very important that public and private are aligned, which means the student should know they're going to get a grade from the private sector where they're doing an internship, which is going to reflect in their mark sheet. So what happens is that all the stakeholders involved are actually working towards the same thing, which is to bring out a student who's of higher advanced knowledge and therefore more useful and productive to society and to the industry. Whether they come into government or they come into private, it doesn't matter. So I think there are many things like that we can assist on as you're going on these advanced steps, and we would be very happy, I can speak on behalf of all my colleagues, to really assist the government on this monumental step, because we know it's a very hard job and we are very happy to support you along the way.
So I know we are almost at the end of this session. You have a point to add? I was just going to, just very quickly.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I have a question to Mr. Singh. My name is Dr. Kanwar. I'm from Metro Hospital Group. I'm a HOD of the group. My question to Mr. Singh is, he's running ambulance services, which is an incredible job. Especially in India, we have a traffic and road conditions, right? Especially the cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Bengaluru, Plus, the skilled manpower, especially the emergency medical technicians, that is very, very important. They have to be fully skilled. The other point is, the hospital delay. When you take the patient to the
Can we just
hospitals.
Maybe go to the question?
Yeah, I'm coming to the question.
Yeah, very quickly.
See, especially the panelists, if you are in the panel patient, the hospital refused to take because of bed shortage or something like that. Then again, you have to move to other hospital. They have the same problem. How you manage? Are you getting me?
I know it's not relevant perhaps to the topic, but one suggestion that can help, ma'am, is that it is indeed true that ambulance driver as a skill is a specified skill globally. Whereas in India, this is not, it is a light motor vehicle or heavy motor vehicle. I have a suggestion that we have this 6-month program any which ways for a lot of EMTs, that is the backbone of Indian response. There could be an ambulance pilot skill that can be created because it is both a clinical, a patient handling and a driving skill. And there are over 1 million people employed doing some kind of patient transport in the country. And there's a huge opportunity to go from an informal to formal sector in this.
Thanks, Pradeep. Okay, we just have to wind this down. I think over a cup of tea you can have a conversation. Here's a couple of next steps, if I may, Dr. Kotwal, Yagnaji. So this entire session was recorded. We will transcribe this in terms of the key points. We'll weave through the main points and we'll create a succinct summary. I think there are 4 or 5 large themes I wanted to touch upon which just came out from all the discussions. The fact is the awareness of allied and healthcare profession in the schools. We did a survey with schools as a part of our earlier report. It's about 6%. So 6% is the awareness level of allied and health professionals, number one. It's a very important fact. The ability for us to build aptitude, fortitude, all starts out of aspiration, the dream, or that I want to be, in this profession. So if there is a campaign that we do, and we do it together with government and private sector, it has to start with the schools, building a brand about why this is such a rewarding profession. I can only personally say I used to at one point of time run the 108 emergency services. And the first day of induction, the DGP used to come and talk. And you will not believe, the first time the apron was given, a white apron, to the EMTs, or a principal secretary health coming and talking in a classroom in the first few days. The feeling in the mind of those who came, the kind of pride they had about that job, that is such a vital factor. So I think the first part is how do we create that 6% number to 20, 30, 35% number. I think the second important data point is 77% of the current allied and medical health professional institutions are churning out students that are not employable. That number is vast, 77% is the. So I'm very happy that the whole commission has come. There is going to be a degree of standardization. And we're churning out a lot of the numbers, and that number ultimately has to tag into vast requirement of demand. The third important data point is the attrition levels are huge. And this is not unlike the IT sector, which has to be part of 300%, 200% attrition number. Ultimately, a kidney or a renal services company or a diagnostic company, they're not a training company, they're not a talent acquisition or a sourcing company. Their ultimately job is to produce services to them. The amount of investment they do on the employee or the staff is going to be directly proportionate to how long is this person going to stick with us. And that depends upon career progression and how fast we are able to build that. And the fourth point is, I think we heard the term, earn as you learn. Creating the initial entry point into this profession as making it easy. And there is a whole life, acquiring a certain competence is not necessarily only within the classrooms. It can be within simulation centers, it can be within your real life of work and everything else. I think the part which private sector I have heard in most of the conversations in each of these areas, either in assessments, either in terms of accreditation, in terms of sharing their current curriculums with which they train a lot of these professionals, to the extent of lending faculty, to the extent of actually using their current distribution and the reach. Between Metropolis, Dr. Lal Path Labs, I'm sure across the country you have more than lakh presences that are right there. The emergency services, the ambulances are dynamically located. I mean, so there's a vast number of footprint we can quickly use for really awareness generation, creating a brand, mobilization, sourcing, and a whole lot of other things. We are very, very thankful that the commission has come, and Dr. Kotwal, with your support and the ministry's support, this section, there's a para 53 in the budget speech, which talks about 10 competencies, and then there are 54 section which talks about just generally the caregivers and the larger sort of sections. Both are very important, and it's high time that we professionalize and formalize this sector. So with those words, if you can kindly, I know that Anisha, there is a memento or other things, we'd like to give whatever it is. Thank you. A photograph or something.
Yes. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, everyone. That was a wonderful discussion. I think it is evident that while the challenges are significant, the opportunities here are equally powerful, especially when policy, industry, and the entire skilling ecosystem comes together. May I also invite Madam Kotwal and Madam Shukla here on the stage for group photograph.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. May I now request Ms. Amira Shah to please felicitate our guest of honor with the mementos. Mr. Amira Shah, will you please felicitate Dr. Kotwal with the memento? Thank you, panelists. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Yagna Shukla, we want you to stay back here for a minute. May I now request Dr. Kotwal to please, yeah. Thank you everyone, and I extend my sincere thanks to all our esteemed panelists, our government dignitaries, Dr. Ms. Vinod Kotwal, Ms. Yagna Shukla, our President Ms. Amira Shah, our Secretary General, Mr. Siddhartha Bhattacharya, and all our distinguished panelists and speakers for sharing their insights so candidly.